Welcome against all odds, family. Thank you again for joining us on a Sunday. Our guest today is Eva Marie Power. Eva Marie, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Sylvia. I'm happy to be here.
We are excited you can make it. We're going to talk about some tough stuff and deep stuff, but the conversation needs to be had. And so we are in awe of your strength. We are in awe of your bravery, and we are glad you are here. So welcome.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Thank you for those of us watching us in time. And for those who will be watching us later, we just want to say welcome. Today we
Welcome.
have with us Eva Marie Power, and she is a survivor of domestic violence, and she is here to talk us through her story. So welcome again, Eva.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to share my story. And
Awesome.
yes,
Awesome. Thank you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself growing up, what it was like, just bring us up to speed, and then we will get to the real stuff.
sure, certainly. I am Eva Marie Power. I was born on the island of Guam. I was actually adopted at birth. So I was raised by a single mother who is Guamanian. However, biologically, I am not Guamanian. Um, I moved stateside at the age of 9. So I went to school here in Southern California from 9 all the way through high school. And I was raised, my mother was the oldest of 7. So I was raised around a lot of first cousins. And so I never missed, I felt like having siblings. She raised me single mom, never married, never had kids of her own. So it's just me and her growing up, but we always lived with other relatives. So it allowed me to have like family unit all the time.
Right. Okay. So a lot of our questions today is going to be based on your book because
Yes,
you went through 9 years of what you call the lion's den,
yes,
9 years of domestic violence.
yes.
I remember I started reading it. I did not even get halfway, and I had to start writing questions. And I said to you, we need to set a date. We need to talk more about this. So I am excited to share you with our audience because I feel like when people are not going through these things, it's something that we don't even think about, but it's an important conversation to be had because it's happening. It's happening with men. It's happening with women. And I've had a conversation with my children yesterday, and if it just such an important conversation to have, even with the kids. I feel like when we start early, then hopefully we're not going to have perpetrators or victims that have to go through this. Yeah. So just to go back, so you were married before,
I was. I
right?
met my first husband rather young. I was at the age of 19. We married and we had 3 children. And we were together, legally married 14 years, together 18 years. Um, and it was a nice, wonderful marriage. He was a great guy. He's still a great guy. The last time I seen him was last Labor Day. He still comes around and sees our adult children now. And we're very good friends. I believe the marriage didn't work. A lot of it is because we didn't have God in our life.
Right.
And I shared that in the book. I really feel like we had a good connection, and if we had God centered, I believe we would have made the distance.
Mm.
But with every marriage, there's challenges, and I think our mindset was very wrong. It was very like, I want to say, for lack of a better term, a rat race. We were just trying to accumulate stuff and not focus on the family. We had the American dream in a sense. We had the
Mm.
4-bedroom house with the white picket fence. He drove a M3 BMW. I had a Chevy Tahoe, but that was exterior. Interior, clearly we had a lot of problems. We weren't, seeing eye to eye, and our vision of the future wasn't together. And he actually brought the divorce to my attention as something he wanted. I felt like it may be a midlife crisis. He was just looking for more, and he didn't want the responsibility of a marriage.
Okay. All right. So, but just to be clear, that first marriage was not abusive.
No, not at all.
All right, excellent. So fast forward, you get divorced. You're on the lookout looking for a man, and you meet this man that he comes as a knight in a shining armor, basically. He you refer to as your abuser.
Yes.
Talk us through how a man that you meet, and he is all that you think you've been looking for in a long time.
Yes.
He is even a man of the collar, you said. He had a Bible in his car, so you felt, in your opinion, that you had met a nice Christian man. Talk us through that.
That's correct. Less than a year after my divorce with my ex-husband, like I said in the book, I didn't give myself a chance to really heal, really do some introspective work, and to know what I wanted, what I was looking for. I felt the very minimum. I just wanted a man of God, a man who feared God, a man who went to church, that sort of thing. That's all I was, like, the only requirement I had.
Right.
When I went out, and he was, very charming, very, very attentive, and very attractive. And yes, he actually took me to church every Sunday, and he woke up praising God, went to bed praising God. All of this, social media, Facebook posts were all about God. And so I thought I did well. I thought, okay, this is it. This is wonderful. Like, he's exactly what I'm looking for. As far as, I missed being married. I wanted the, a marriage, a stability, the relationship. I'm like, being married 18 years, I'm a fish out of water as far as dating and the process is. So I just want the familiarity of being in a marriage unit again. I felt comfortable there. I felt like I was more productive in a marriage, and so I kind of didn't do my homework so much.
Right.
I didn't ask the right questions. I overlooked a lot of stuff I wouldn't do now. Well, hindsight is 2020, but yes, as far as charming, attractive, yes, very much so.
Okay. Right. So he literally sweeps you off your feet.
Absolutely.
And fast forward, you say there was a red flag that you should have paid attention to. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah, I just felt like he was moving fast, very fast. But at the same time, I thought it was okay because, I had really liked him. He talked about children and marriage, and he knew where I kept my birth controls, and they came up missing. And I kept them in the same place, and I was always, responsible. And I had just got out of a marriage. I didn't want, necessarily to have any more children. So I just felt like he intentionally disposed of those to impregnate me. Again, hindsight is 2020, but I do see that happen often, where a lot of men that want to control, or their intentions are not as sincere, is to impregnate right away, because that's a form of control.
Right.
Because now you have that attachment of the child. So you're less likely you're going to work harder, try harder to keep the relationship
going. So you talk about control. Do you think it is one of the main characteristics, one of the main things to look out for in an abuser, as you call him in the book? If you meet someone and they seek to control aspects of your life, would you say that is definitely a red flag to look out for?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, there's a difference between being attentive and being controlling.
Right.
You have to just see how involved they are. A lot of times they try to separate you from your current social um, friends or family. They'll down talk them to make it seem like they have your best interest. A lot of it is very manipulative.
Hmm.
So they're very, like they almost practice. They know what works. And to be honest with you, a lot of times they study you. They see,
Mm.
it's not like I said, their intentions aren't sincere. So
Right.
when you're trying to know somebody is a difference than trying to learn somebody. So you know what to say, what's gonna work, how
Mm.
you're gonna get your way with that person.
Right. Right.
Yes,
Right. Um, so you get pregnant,
yes,
basically. But up until this point, throughout your pregnancy, you said you felt safe.
yes.
Talk to us about the first time when he actually laid hands on you.
Our son, yes, I got pregnant 2 months after we met. I found out I was expecting, and I would say a few weeks after my son was born, um, we pulled into our mailbox, and I was checking for the mail, and the windows were rolled up, and I heard him mumbling, but I didn't think it was important. I was just checking the mail. I'll be right back to the car. I was driving at the time,
Hmm.
and our son was in the back seat in his car seat, and opened the door, sat down, I started to put my seatbelt on and go through the mail, and then I felt like a hit on the side of my face, which I was didn't expect, and I remember saying something like, "I'm sorry, what did you need?" I didn't hear you when I was outside because all I heard was mumbling. And
Right.
then when I felt hit, the fist hit my jaw, I remember immediately my eyes watered because it was just shocking. Like I didn't expect that
Hmm.
over not hearing you outside this door, car door. And I remember thinking, oh my God, did he just hit me like with his fist? And I remember my eyes watered, and I was just in shock. And I remember thinking, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry you're upset. Like, how can I make this okay?
Mm.
I wasn't angry. I was more in shock. Like, I couldn't believe he just did that.
Okay. So somebody is watching and they're asking, he hit you.
Mhm.
Why are you apologizing? Why are you the one apologizing when you have just been hit?
That's the crazy part about a lot of this is, it's like you just want to make things okay. No matter what they bring to you, all you're thinking of is how can I make you okay? What's the matter? Why are you upset? You
Right.
know, it's like you just want to, everything revolves around them and their well-being, them and their happiness, them and their comfort, them and their, you know, your world just turns into keeping them okay so that doesn't happen anymore. The
Right.
abuse, that's when I noticed it's like I described it in the book. It starts where you start walking on eggshells
Mm.
because your mind isn't about you anymore. It's focused solely on how to make that person okay so you're okay.
Because you do not want to be hit again.
Yes. And you want to like just keep peace, and and definitely you don't want to upset them because of fear.
Right. So at this point, had you been with him for a year or you got pregnant two
Oh
months
yeah.
after being with him? So,
Yeah. Over
okay.
about over a year since we had met.
Okay. Okay. So you decided you would leave him. You decided you'd leave town. You had it all planned out. What were the events that led to this decision and what happened after?
Well, he started going out all the time with friends, but I wouldn't. I was at home caring for our son.
Mm.
Um, and one particular night, He came home really late, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, and he was being dropped off by a lady that I know he had a history with. So unfortunately, or surprisingly enough, I was more upset that he had spent the night with someone he has a relationship with in the past than I was the fact that he was an abuser.
Wow.
It was like I was more upset that he came home, and I'm calling his phone, where are you? And yeah, so when I went outside and saw her pulling up with him in the car, I knew where he had been all night. And so I was that was it. I was like planning, and I called a few friends to try to help me get away. And that was like, on top of being abusive, now you're, like emotionally detached from me. Like there's no reason for me to stay here.
Did that plan work out?
It did for a little bit. It was the first time I actually physically left, and when I did leave, here came the 50 phone calls. I didn't pick up. I listened to all the messages, which is another mistake, because they woo you in again. They say all the right things. They know what to say. The I miss you. I'm sorry. Let's try to make this work again. I miss our son. Everything you want to hear to make it where you're like, okay, just don't let it happen. Or, and then you do miss them. They're still, it's almost like you just met them again. And they're that knight in shining armor that you met from the beginning.
Right.
And you want to believe that they'll change. You want to believe that what they're saying to you is sincere. And so I reached back out when I did miss him. It was the holidays around that time. And so I wanted to see him for the holidays. And so we ended up connecting again, and he ended up moving to where I was.
Okay. So when you say you miss him, so this is somebody that had been abusive towards you. Do you almost put that in a box, almost like it doesn't exist, and then just think about the kinder version of themselves? Is that what happens?
Absolutely. You do. You can choose to think of all the reasons why you're not with someone versus all the reasons why you should try and continue making it work. But yes, you excuse it, or you minimize it and make it okay in your head.
Right.
Yeah. It's the only way you're going to allow them back in.
So he moves back to where you are. You get pregnant again.
I did.
And again, were your pregnancy safe? He didn't hit you when you were pregnant?
Correct.
Okay. So now you have your daughter. It start happening again then?
Yes. I know my daughter might have been 2 weeks old because she was still in the crib, and I was very near the crib when this second incident took place. And again, he was out late. At this time he was with his bandmates. He was doing shows and gigs, and he had groupies, and they were out partying. And of course, I'm with the two little ones. And I remember him coming home, and I was upset. I was questioning him, like, why? It's not okay. 2:00 in the morning, you're just getting in. You haven't returned my calls. I don't know whether I should worry about you if something happened. The whole concern.
Right.
And I remember he just got upset with me, continually quizzing him, and he walked towards me. I had just put our daughter down in the crib, and then I felt a hit on my left ear, in the temple area, and to the point where I literally saw stars. Like I couldn't hear. I heard like a ringing, like a bell, like a long stench of a bell ringing,
right.
and stars. And I cried, of course, and apologized again. And just left it alone because I don't want to heighten the situation.
Did you need medical attention for any of the times when he hit you? Was it so bad that you needed to go see uh
A doctor, a hospital?
yes.
Fortunately, no. Um, I had not seen any medical treatment. I don't know if I even would, unless it was life threatening. Um, I
Mm,
just took it. I just took it, and I healed it. As best I could. But no, I've
mhm.
never had to go to the hospital. Like, it was never life threatening. I think
Okay.
because I would try to calm the situation, that I never excelled it. I never swung back. I never talked back loud. Like, I didn't escalate it.
Right.
I
Right.
always just was apologetic, put my hands down where he knew I wasn't threatened. So he
Mhm.
had really no reason to continue.
Right.
But I think if I'd have provoked him, I would
Mhm.
have definitely been
Mm,
in more harm for sure. I
right.
just tried not to. I did everything I could to, you know, bring down the situation.
Okay. And did I hear you say even if you weren't sure if you would, if you needed medical attention, you weren't sure at the time if you would. Was it because of shame?
Yes, that, and always trying to protect him. I didn't want it documented.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the mindset you're in.
Mm,
And you feel like if you did document and you had to explain, I'm sure he would have gave me the answers to explain the reason for the injuries, because he was very good about scripting things.
mm,
Um, but I know me, and at the end of the day, I would have just been honest, and it would have been documented, and that would have probably escalate yet another attack at a later time.
right. Right. Okay. So to make matters worse, he started using recreational drugs.
Yes.
What do you think led him to this?
I found out that, he actually has been using, not necessarily during our relationships, and if he did, I've never been around a user enough to recognize the signs or the symptoms of one. So yes, he did start using, and the way I knew was because items kept disappearing from our apartment, and I found out later he was either giving it to his dealer as a trade off, a barter system, or he was pawning it.
Wow.
So that's when I was like, what is going on? You need to talk to me. I don't understand. And he avoided it. He was always gone doing those things. And then finally he fessed up.
Wow. What did you say when he fessed up? How did you take it? It's almost like he confirmed what you knew all along, but how did you deal with it?
I was just asking him, how can we treat it? Where, if this isn't something I would have noticed sooner, or if this isn't something that could be ongoing, or you find that there are ways or times in which you're not using, how do we get you back there? What is it that triggered you to start using? And again, trying to heal him, trying to make it better for him, trying to find the answers for him.
Mm, mm, mm. And on that theme of trying to make things better for him, which means that you don't get hit, you you carve out a way for him to move closer back to his family.
Yes.
What was your thinking, and how did you get that to happen? And tell us what happened once that happened.
Yes, with him using, again, I hadn't been around anyone who used, so I didn't know what to expect. I just know that I feared that eventually he may overdose, and I would have to figure out a way to get him to his family.
Right.
So I just started talking more and more about how he misses his family, and how maybe he should go back home and see them, and how it would be good to raise the children around his people so they get to know them, and that it would be a good change for us, and maybe it would help him.
Right.
Um, personally and help us as a married couple. I just felt like it was a win-win, and I just kept reiterating it all the time until finally he was like, you know what? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Maybe we should. I miss my family. Yeah.
Wow. So you move um, to the States where his family is. Did things get any better?
No. Of course he missed them. Of course they were so happy to see him. It's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. So, people gathered. First cousins came. He's the oldest of six. So of course all his siblings came, all his nieces and nephews, and he was kind of a celebrity in a way that he was one of the only one, if not the only one, that had left the state and went to a big city. So he had a lot of stories. He had been gone like 20 years. So it was like a very nice homecoming. But I would say about a month after being there, he was back to himself. If not, to me, almost worse, because he was comfortable in that environment. He knew a lot of people, and he had resources. If he wanted to use, he knew who to talk to about that. If he, it was like his old stomping grounds, and a lot of people that knew his history of abuse and or drug using, they knew him. So he whatever he could seek, if he wanted it, he could find it.
Wow. Wow. So things took a turn for the worse in terms of his abuse towards you. And you had to dial for the first time, you had to dial 911. Tell us what happened then.
Yes. So he at this time he was working, and his boss had called, and I had to he asked me to get the phone, and I said, no, that's your boss, it's your job, you answer it. And he said, no, you need to answer it. This is what I need you to say to him. And I remember picking it up and just going off anything. I don't even, and he was just looking at me like angry, like, why are you saying that? And I'm like, I don't know what to say, because that's just not my demeanor. I tell the truth. And so I could already tell he was upset with me before I hung up. So as soon as I hung up from his boss, I jumped up, because we were sitting position, because I knew it was coming. I knew I had, like I said in the book, veered off his script, because he's very manipulative. He knows what to say, who to say it. It's pre-scripted. It's unbelievable, how he thinks ahead. So anyway, I jumped up, and I remember him grabbing me around my neck. I fell to the couch, and the children started crying because they were seeing this. And that's when I believe he let off of me, because he didn't want them to see that. And then, things calmed down a little bit. And of course, I'm a mess. And I just thought it's going to get worse later on in the day if I just stay here. Like, I just feel it brewing.
Right.
So I was looking where the keys to the car. I was looking where's the phone, because he kept those. The keys and the phones were always on his persons. It was hardly ever something I had access to. So, I looked at where they were, and I just told him, hey, I need the bathroom. And, he was okay. He was like, okay. And so I grabbed, without him knowing, I grabbed my key and acted like I was going in the restroom, closed the door behind me. But I actually snuck around when he wasn't looking and ran to my car.
Right.
I was shaking, running, shaking, because I was scared that he was going to see. And I got in the car, rolled up the window, and I'm terrified. And it was my first time to call 911, but I just knew I had to get away from the situation. So I called 911, and I told them, My husband, he's inside. He doesn't know. I locked myself in my vehicle. I
Right.
need officers here now before he finds out I'm out here and that I'm calling you guys.
Hmm.
He tried to choke me. I don't want to be here. It's not safe for me. And please send an officer. And I'm shaking.
Hmm.
And 5 minutes passed, and I don't know when he's going to come see that I'm in a car and I'm
Hmm.
in the bathroom.
Right.
And I just kept telling the operator, how much longer, how much longer? And she's like, their ETA is 5 minutes, ma'am. They're en route, whatever. And I'm just like, please hurry, please hurry, please hurry. I'm scared.
Hmm.
And so finally the officer pulled up and I felt better. I still didn't want to get out the car, like in case he came out, but then the officer, uh, waved me out and I got out and he's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, my husband's in there. He's going to hurt me. He just tried to choke me, and I need to leave. I can't be here. I can't be here. I need to go. And so he asked if he was armed. And I said, as far as I know, there's no weapons in the home, but I can't say for sure. Um, and then he asked for backup. A second unit came. And then I started to feel a little better. And then my husband walked out with our, at the time, 8-month-old daughter, maybe 9 months,
Hmm.
on his arms. Like, he was surprised to see officers. He couldn't understand what was going on. Like, why had I called 911?
Right.
And, he was trying to downplay it. Officer, this is just a disagreement between me and my wife. Nothing happened. No, I didn't put my hands on her, lying. And so they made me sign a statement that he did actually, try to choke me. And that was enough to put him in cuffs and read him his rights and take him away.
Hmm.
And so at that point, that's my first time calling the domestic violence hotline. And then they referred me, to a shelter to check if they had availability, because at this point it was myself and 2 children.
Hmm.
And luckily for me, there was room. So I left that evening, packed my stuff, and left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're obviously living in his family home now when all of this is happening. Did that not deter him at all? Did that lengthen the periods in which he would, try to hit you? It didn't deter him?
No, in fact, they feared him just as much as I did.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. And you did mention that it was actually a time when you found out about his past.
Yes, I knew he had a felony years ago. He said it was in his early 20s. He explained it to me that he was upset with somebody who had owed him money, and he saw this person, having money but never paying him back. So he was upset with him, and he had really beat him up badly to the point where he had to serve time. And that when he got out, he was apologetic to this guy and, tried to have some restitution. And that while he was in prison, he was, let out early because of good behavior. And so that was how he explained his prison time. However, I was talking to his brother, and his brother told me, he served time. He has felony. I said yes, and I explained to him what my husband at the time had told me, and he said that what he shared with me wasn't true. That, is that what he told you? And I said yes. He says no. He actually served time for severely beating up and causing injuries to his high school sweetheart, who has children with him. So his pattern and history just was consistent, and it was so abusive. He did have a felony. He did serve quite a bit of time, even though it was half the time, when he was released, and then the other half was probation. But then I realized just exactly what I had been dealing with all this time, that it was a pattern, it was a history, it was instilled in him.
Right.
And that it was just not going to get any better. And just how unsafe I was.
Was it at this point that you went into the shelter when
Yes,
you
the first
knew
time.
what?
Yep.
The first time. Okay. So you go into the shelter the first time. Why did you come back?
I went into the shelter the first time for 21 days, and at that time I realized I missed my cycle and that I was going to be expecting our third child. So that was even more, stress on me. I at the time had a 4-year-old, well, almost 4-year-old, a 10-month-old, 9-month-old, and then expecting my next child. I was probably 6, maybe 8 weeks pregnant by then.
Wow.
So I felt like, I knew if I went back, I would be safe because I was expecting, but I didn't necessarily want to. I just felt like that's my option at this point because now I'm expecting. So I have to like make us be okay at least till I have this baby. It was going to be hard, like to seek employment and try to become self-sufficient and pregnant, and then having 2 toddlers.
Yeah. Yeah. So you went into a shelter. That was your first time. You said you'd actually been to a shelter 3 times. Tell us about the importance of such a service.
You know what? I thanked the women and the shelters in my book. I can't say enough for all the resources and the genuine concern and help that they give women with children, or just single women. They're just incredible. The services are so much needed. And, for me, coming from the situation I was in, because even though we're all victims, our needs are very different. But they do have like legal services if you want a divorce. They have, special grants or programs that they will give you money to relocate. There's some red tape or stipulations, and you have to qualify just like any other, resource or grant. But I mean, if you are able to get that additional assistance, it's just incredible. For me, at check-in, after, they do all the paperwork to be in the residency, and then go over your, it's very, the biggest thing is it's very confidential. No information is ever allowed. It's very safe, very, very safe. And it gives you time to just have some peace. And like the little things that matter, like for me was the Pampers and the wipes and, toiletries, just the little things, and it's available there. So I can't say enough for the peace of mind, no matter how short a time you spend there. And the ladies are very helpful, very encouraging, and they just want you safe. They just want you safe.
Wow. So, in one of the shelters where you spend time, you describe a room full of colorful frames.
Yes.
And you describe it as one of the pivotal moments for you.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So at shelters, you have some guidelines. And in this particular one, you have to be at a morning meeting at 9 a.m. And the children, you check them in at like a little play area where they have, an advocate watching them while you attend the morning meetings. And you kind of go over your goals for the week, your goals for the day, get that mindset of being productive for the day. And I happened to be early this one particular time, and I never paid attention. But I noticed when I was there by myself before anybody else showed up, that there were these really pretty frames that covered the entire room, the entire circumference of the room. They were colorful, and so they caught my attention. I'm just walking around like I'm at an art gallery, my arms behind my back. I'm just looking and reading, and it didn't make sense to me because all I saw was the color of the frames, and then above the frame was a date and a year, or the month and the year. So it would say, I'll give you an example, October 2020, and then below it was just names and a comma and a number. So none of this makes sense to me. I was just like, why do they have all these frames up here with just a month, a year, names, and a number? Like, I couldn't think of why that was relevant. So when the advocate walked in, I said, excuse me, why are there frames here? What does this mean with names and months and years? But they're pretty, and she said, she walked up to me and she stood behind me and she said, those frames, the names you're reading are the victims of domestic violence that have died based on the month and year of their death, as well as the numbers behind them indicated the year at the time of their death. And so then I paid closer attention and I noticed, for example, it will say Veronica Smith, 47, Angel Smith, 9 months, Michael Smith, 7. And so then I noticed that's probably a family. And then it would say like, just Samantha Rodriguez and, just all these names. And it just was overwhelming. My eyes started to water as all I could see was names and numbers. And I tried to see if there was relations. And like I said, I felt my eyes just start to well and, tears were falling. And then the advocate looked at me or said, as she was walking back to her desk, she said, just so you know, some of those names you're reading walk through our doors. And that's when it dawned on me that death was even, when you're going through the abuse, you don't think of it as permanent. You don't think of it as that could happen to me. But when she said those words of some of those names you're reading have walked through our doors, it became very real. And I just sat down and I just remember crying and grabbing a tissue and I was just not okay. And I prayed for the names in those colorful frames.
Wow. And you say this is why you do this. This is why you talk about your experiences for the silent ones, for the ones that died going through domestic violence. Again, in a shelter, you in the book you say that domestic violence has no prejudices, that you met women from all sorts of backgrounds. And sorry, viewers, that we are concentrating on viewers. I just want to stress that there are men that go through domestic violence as well. It just so happens that we're talking to Eva, who is a woman and we're talking through her experiences and through the shelters, because most of the shelters, again, are mostly for women. So most of our examples are with women, but there are men that go through the same horrendous experiences that domestic violence brings. So you're saying you meet women from all sorts of backgrounds.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
Yes, every nationality, every age group, from different backgrounds, different parts of the country. And I stated it in the book that there was nothing we had in common, all of us, except that we were women and that we were being abused. We, like with anything, we had some similarities. Some were, believers and Christians, and others were atheists, and some were, young, some were old, some were very professional. There was, from an RN to just a waitress. Like, it just varies. There's just nothing else really much that we had in common. No matter where I stayed, no matter who I talked to, some had kids, some didn't have kids. And our abusers were all different nationality, different ages, different races. There's just not one formula for an abuser or a victim. It can happen to anyone, any age, any nationality, any religion, any there's just every variation.
Right. again in the shelter, I just need you to tell the story to our viewers about the woman whose police report came through.
The woman what?
Whose police report
Oh, yes, yes.
came through. Do you want to tell the viewers about that story?
Absolutely, yes. She was single. She was there with no kids. And I just found her reading a paper, and she seemed very emotional when she was reading it. And I asked her, what is that? Why are you upset? And she said, this is a copy of the police report from the incident that took place that brought me to this shelter. And there stated in that police report was items that were found in her. It was actually her boyfriend of maybe 1 year, but they resided together. So
Okay.
she left his place of residence because of this altercation, where she wasn't even the one that called police. It was a neighbor that called the police because of all the commotion. Needless to say, she got to the shelter, and then, like I said, the police sent her a copy of the report, and her not knowing, because she was removed from the situation to go to the shelter, she didn't realize all that was in the report, but the police sent it to her, and she was reading it. And it said that found in the in her abuser's vehicle, in the trunk of his vehicle, was duct tape, a blanket, trash bag, an axe,
Oh my God.
like the ties. I forget what they're called, but they're like the zip ties for your wrist. Just things that didn't make sense to be all together in the trunk of a car. And I knew, and she looked at me and she said he was planning to really, really just, an axe.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, why are all these items in the back of your vehicle? So she believed in her in the heart of her, and that's why she was emotional, that he was planning, to
Kill
take
her.
her. Yes.
I read that story and I had shivers,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have shivers.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think, like you at the time, people go through this and they don't see the end of it. They just basically go through the motions, thinking that it's a bad experience. But I don't think that they realize that it could actually end up with them losing their lives, because this is a person who just wants control at any cost. Now, the third time that you fell pregnant, your abuser at this time was very much into his drug habit. He was pawning anything and everything that you owned. Whatever you got in, he took away from you. Why did you feel the need to go back, even when his bit in at least providing the family now was even being taken away to service his drug habit? What was going through your mind at the time? Why do you think you went back?
I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, but it was the lesser of. There was a lot of fear. First, I was in an area I didn't know anyone except his family, and I know that was just not an option. And I just felt like if me and the kids were okay, that it was better than me trying to make it for all three of us at the time. Like, they were still very little. At this time, my younger one was maybe kindergarten, first grade. So I had that to make sure he was, in school. I felt like it was the lesser of two. And I kind of learned him in a sense that I know how not to cause any problems. I just wanted to, get by. And to the point where I was an enabler, meaning I would do whatever I could so he could stay away. Yeah, so it would just be like me and the kids most of the time, if not all the time.
What would
I
you
wasn't
do?
necessarily back with him. Like there was not a romantic. It was we were different residences. I had got into a housing project that allowed me to live there because I was in an abusive relationship.
Okay.
I had to show the restraining order as a means of being put up on the list to be the next tenant. So he was not allowed. He was banned from the property. So he
Right.
could not be on property. He was served that he, is not allowed on the property. So I felt very safe. So I wasn't necessarily back. Like I said, at this time we lived in different residences. We just communicated.
Right.
Um, a lot of it was for the kids, but in all honesty, I was just trying to better myself. I was going to school, I was going to work,
Right.
I was getting the kids to school. And I just felt like if we were okay. And I didn't feel like, coming back here, where I eventually moved, to like be more of a burden to my family.
Okay.
So I just stayed where I was.
Okay. Now there was a final straw that got you that got you your final freedom. What happened?
Well, one night, because he knew I had just got paid, he knew my pay periods, my paydays, and he came to the door knocking like he usually does. But this time I didn't open it. He just wanted some money to go feed his habit.
Right.
And I said, no problem, just come in the morning. I'll be happy to give it to you, but I'm not going to the ATM right now. I would have to leave, go pull that money and come back. So I just had him, please just come back in the morning. And then, he left, or it was quiet. He was no longer knocking. I went back to sleep. I woke up at 6 o'clock like I told him to. And sure enough, like clockwork, he was knocking at the door. I opened it and I said, okay, I'm already dressed. Let me just go grab my purse. I'll run real quick to the ATM and I'll give you the money. Then you can, do what you do and leave. And I turned my back and I heard the door behind me lock, which I didn't get because I was just going to grab my purse and walk back out to go to the ATM. And as he locked the door, I turned around, or he said, wait a minute. And I said, yeah, what's up? And I turned around and like just probably one of the worst punch on like my chin, my lip area, really hard. And then it kept coming. And again, I just put my hand down because I never wanted him to think that I was going to hit back or that he was threatened by me in any way. I just remember crying, like I thought we were past this, because it had been a while, but a lot of it is because we were in different residences and not around each other. And because for me growing up, I didn't have a father, and that was my biggest reason for just staying in the area was to, try to make my kids have a dad in their life, as minimal as, but it's still to know their father. So I would think that was my biggest reason to stay. But at that point, it struck really hard. I tasted my blood. And my heart started beating, and it was throbbing in my lip. It was across my face, my head, everything, with his fist. And I heard the kids, because clearly they heard me, crying. And the kids came around the hallway, and he met them halfway, and he was like, it's your mom. He was upset because I didn't open the door at midnight when the money hit the bank to go get what he needed. I had him to wait till 6 a.m. And so, he was like, tell them it's your fault. Tell them you made me do it. Tell them you should have answered the door last night for me instead of having me to wait till the morning. And I did. I did whatever he asked. So as I was crying, I told the kids, your father's right. Mommy should have gone and opened the door. Mommy got to leave right now. Go to the bank for your dad. I'll be back. Again, just, and I cried all the way to the teller, to the ATM, cried back. And I said, here's your money. and he left. He left, and then I took the kids to school. They ended up reporting the incident. Clearly, they were traumatized because they spoke up in school.
Mm-hmm.
So by noon, I had an officer at my door, and you could clearly see my injury. So they know what the kids were saying was true. And I had a bruise underneath my chin as well as my busted lip,
Right.
because he was just punching everywhere. And the officer said, "Do you want to file a report? Do you want to press charges?" And I said, "No, I don't. Like, I can't right now. Because I have to think of, like, if he come back or just, I was just exhausted at that point, and I just didn't feel like there was going to be any resolution to having him be put in jail or to go through this report. If anything, it might get me hurt later somewhere. I don't know. So I was at the point where I was just exhausted. And so later on that day, he said, more people are going to come visit you. I said, okay. And so later on that day, a CPS worker came, and she shared with me how she understands the player of this scenario. She knows what's going on. She's seen it too many times, and she advised me to leave. Like, she knew my family wasn't there. I had no reason to be there except to try to keep my kids to know their father.
Right.
Other than that, I had no reason to be there. And so and she understood that. She said, "I understand that that's important to you because you didn't have a father growing up and you want this for your children. But I just want you to at least think about it, that might be a better option for you and your children." So I said, okay. And she left. She gave me her card. And then I want to say 2 weeks later, she was at my door again. And I said, "There's been no other incident. What is she doing here?" So I answered the door, and she said, "I had to do a review with your children, and they're saying that their father's still around them. Something about you giving him food, and then him wanting money, and then you guys are arguing again." I said, "That's very true. He was out on the streets or doing what he does, and so he would ask me for food. Me, always trying to do the right thing. I would go give him food, but really that was just his reason to get me to him to ask for money." So then we would have an argument. So the kids conveyed this to the CPS worker, follow-up interview. So she visited my home, and the words that she said to me was it. She said, "If you don't keep your kids from their father, the state will keep your kids from their father." I said, "That's not a problem. You won't see me again. I'll be leaving here in 2 weeks. I just going to put in my 2-week notice." And I knew I was going to be driving cross country, basically. So I wanted to make sure my vehicle could make the trip. I wanted to get AAA enforced in case we were stranded. It was going to be me at the time with a 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And we drove 1,850 miles away.
Wow.
In the 2 weeks that I told her I would be gone.
Wow. Wow. And that is another thing that is typical, right? Because as a victim, you don't just leave. You have to plan your escape, which is why you needed 2 weeks to, and if you were living in the same residence, then it was about when he would be out of the house or when you would feel totally safe to do so. And of course, in your case, you needed people to help you plan the escape. You actually went to see his family, and they were good about not telling them that you were leaving.
Yes.
Wow.
You can't risk that he'll find out. And in all honesty, you're most in danger if you verbally threaten to leave, or if you are in the stages of leaving, if you're packing your things, if you're getting in your car, anything where you're leaving your abuser is when you're most in danger, up until 2 weeks after. So safe planning is huge. Most men interviewed that are serving time because they did kill the person in their life expressed that it was because she threatened to leave or she was actually leaving.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. If our time is up, but I want you to very quickly, if you could, to a person who is going through domestic violence right now,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to them?
I would say just please know that it's not going to stop. It's just a cycle. Um, and that, definitely safe planning. There are resources out there. There is a silver lining. You will find yourself again. You will grow from this. There's nothing to be shameful about. There are plenty of people that would be more than happy to help you. Um, reach out and reach out safely. Domestic violence is very serious. It is life threatening. And I just, my heart goes out to you because I do understand the dynamics. I understand that healing is a process. Just know that you're not going to be okay overnight, but that you will be okay. And just, like in my book, I always say immediate, warm, tight hugs, very tight hugs to you.
Right. And finally, do you have a message for our audience? And
Yes.
yeah, maybe we can think of somebody you have, the audience may have a friend or may know someone going through domestic abuse. And I think you and I mentioned in the conversation that the person needs to be ready to leave themselves.
Yes.
But they are wondering in their hearts, what can they do to help the situation? What is your general message for them? And what would you say to a person like that whose family member or friend is going through the situation?
First, just the best thing you can be is actually just, or the safest thing you can do is just be a listening ear. Allow that person to trust you. Allow them to um, be okay. Acknowledge them. Confirm that you understand, and be very caring and empathetic and compassionate to someone who's sharing something that they feel you may be judging them, or allow them to speak. That's the safest thing. Now, if you decide to involve yourself a little more, please understand that you are risking yourself. There is a percentage, I believe 41% of victims of domestic violence are not the intended person. Uh, so innocent bystanders are risking their lives if they intervene any more than, just be precautious and know that your safety is at risk. If you happen to be there at the wrong place, the wrong time, even though your intentions are to help, that, leave it to the professionals. I, like I said, there's, I would do, where you tell somebody if you have a code name, a code word, you turn on a light somewhere, that means you're in trouble. Just different things to alarm somebody to be able to reach out in case the victim isn't able to. It's the best advice I can do. Just know that your safety is in danger if you decide to involve yourself any more than just listening. But listening is the best thing you can offer. And if you can come up with a safe alternative of maybe them, giving you a code word where that means for you to call the police, then, those are different, strategic things that you can do to save somebody. But honestly, professionals would be the best to get involved, like authorities and the police, or the victim themselves. They know their attacker, they know their abuser well enough to do some safe planning and get the resources they need should they want out.
Okay. Eva Maria, it's been an eye-opening last few days for me, and I'm sure it's been for my audience as well. I just want to say thank you so much
Thank you.
for honoring our invitation. We will put your social media handles in the description if people want to follow you, but maybe you want to say that quickly, because you have written a book, The Lion's Den, which you're actually giving for free this
Yes.
October, because it's actually Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Breast cancer seems to take over, but it is actually also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So you're giving that for free if they email you, and we will have all those details in the description. But we just
Yes.
want to say thank you, even if we managed to save one life this evening through this conversation. So we just want to say thank you. Against All Odds family, again, it has been my pleasure to bring to you things that I find out, things that I learn, things that I feel that will help us. And this is one woman that inspires. She has been against all odds and come out the other side and is ready to share her story to help others. So thank you so much, Eva Maria. And audience,
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank
you.
you, audience.
And we will
Stay safe.
we will see you again next week. Thank you for coming.